Good morning, fantasy fans, baseball fans. We've got opening day today. I'm Chris Durrell, and I'm here with
Josh from RotoPros. I don't want to give my last name out. I got to be the man of mystery here. There's too many weirdos out there who search.
Yeah, so we're here for opening day. Very excited. We've got a brand new season. This year with MLB, we've got a full slate today. So the sites have did it a little bit different. So DraftKings, they set it up for a 5-game slate. As well as a 9-game main slate this afternoon. And then both sites have left off the Boston-Seattle game tonight, where FanDuel has an all-day slate there. You can jump in and you can play, mix it all together. So it's just a matter of what site you play for. I wish DraftKings would have had an all-day slate, but being that there's still 5 games on that early slate, it's still a pretty good slate. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to kind of go through both slates quickly, go over the pitching and then some teams to target. We got a lot of lineups that have already came out here so far this morning, so we can definitely look at some top stacks, a few value plays that are going to show up and help us make some cash game lineups, and then some GPP type stuff as well. So with that, let's just jump right in and get started. So on this slate, starting in the morning, we got Baltimore at New York. I know you're really excited for this game as a Yankees fan. I guess when I first broke it down in my article last night, when I came out with my article, I was looking at the starting pitching, and you've got Scherzer and DeGrom facing each other. And by the way, I think this is the first time in like over 15 years where the number 1 and number 2 Cy Young in both leagues will face each other on opening day. It's pretty crazy. But anyways, back to the slate here. So you got Scherzer and just DeGrom facing each other. That's very tough with 2 elite pitchers. Very low total in that game. Myself, for cash games, I'm going to be a little bit more on FanDuel. I'm going to be providing the FanDuel skeletons for our customers today. I'm looking at Tanaka myself. He's going up against a Baltimore team that was near the bottom of the league in hitting last year. They didn't really improve anything. They got rid of Manny Machado halfway through the season. So that's really my number 1 pitcher here. For GPPs, I do like going Scherzer paying up because he's at like 11,100 on DraftKings right now. That's going to quickly be 13,000 probably within a month. So jump on Scherzer now if you want to get some exposure.
Yeah,
How are you looking at it?
Yeah, agreed. I mean, Scherzer was prone to the long ball a little bit last year, but he's so good, and he strikes people out at such a high rate that if you're new to MLB DFS, especially on DraftKings, well, I guess for both sites, honestly, K's and K upside for pitchers is just like, I don't even know what the proper analogy would be because it's just so important. It's like touchdowns, like literally for football players. Yeah. And home runs, like Ks are just everything in DFS. So on the nights, there's a certain couple of guys, Kershaw when he's what we've seen him in the past, and Scherzer and DeGrom are honestly 2 more of them. Verlander, we're going to see Snell later, but there's a couple guys that just strike people out at such a high rate that you almost, well, definitely for cash, you really need them in there. But if you're going to fade them in GPP, not only do you need pretty good outings from the guys you do end up choosing, but you're going to need some serious offense from the offense you're stacking too. So point being, Scherzer, like you just said perfectly, is probably going to be up like 12.5, 13K pretty soon. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised, if DeGrom was kind of the same thing. But, for opening day, I would lean towards Scherzer a little bit in cash and more DeGrom in GPP. I wouldn't sleep on Aaron Nola. He's just as much of an ace as all of them. But he is probably going up a little bit better of a Braves offense. But I don't know. I mean, everyone's excited in Philly. So, and Tanaka too, obviously Baltimore is considerably weaker now after the offseason they had. They're just younger. A lot of new names in that lineup. But Cedric Mullins had a really good end of the year last year. He's a dynamic switch hitter at the top of their lineup. Dom Smith, the lefty, he's got a lot of power. John VR, he's weirdly got power and speed. Mancini's, we've seen him for a while. He hits righties pretty well. I don't know who Ruiz is, but, if he's hitting fifth and he's a lefty, he could do damage against Tanaka too. So, Tanaka is very volatile. I'd like to think as a Yankee fan that he'll be a little bit more consistent this year. And towards the end of last year, I think he had a pretty dominant second half of the year. So, opening day in the Bronx, everyone's pretty extra hype. So I wouldn't be shocked if the best pitching combo today was something along the lines of Tanaka, Scherzer. It's not a rule that I live and die by, but I do kind of try and spend about 20K of the salary on my pitchers for cash games.
Yep.
So that's kind of what ends up usually happening, where I feel good enough that I can still get a proper stack on the offensive side without having to, pick the worst offense and hope my pitchers throw perfect games. But I also, when I spend 20K, I definitely feel like I'm putting significant cash and investment into, probably the two most important players in your lineup.
And when you put that 20K and just kind of looking at it now, I've got Scherzer and Tanaka in there.
Again, sorry.
That's $20,400 at the moment. That still leaves you a $3,700 average per player. I mean, that is really good because you can go ahead and you can find probably on DraftKings 2 or 3 players in that value range who are leading off top of the order in that $2,500 to $3,000 range, even in that $3,300 range, which then brings you up and you can still go out and you can still get 2 or 3 hitters. So going Scherzer and Tatanka is probably going to be, that's definitely the way I'm going to be going in cash games. And then over on FanDuel where you only need that one pitcher, I'm probably just going to either it's very close for me. I mean, you've really got me convinced here. I mean, Tanaka gave up a lot of hard contact last year. That's really the one thing that separates him from those top 3 pitchers. Like you said, Nola, he's a 195 favorite, which is awesome. I like seeing Tanaka at that -380 against that weaker offense. There is a lot of strikeouts in that Baltimore starting lineup. So I'm still leaning Tanaka just because you're going to get what is it, like $2,100 difference. I just feel you can get some more bats in there today, and finding the bats is a little bit harder on opening day just because we got all these aces going up against each other, which just creates a ton of hard matchups.
Don't sleep on Julius Chassin.
Yeah,
he's all the way down at 6,300. He's definitely going to be lower owned. I mean, look, that's my GPP guy right there. I mean, like I just said, cash 20K, a little bit over, a little bit under. It's okay. So that'll be something like, honestly, I'm going to fit Nola in there too. So I think I kind of prefer, I don't know. I don't want to say I prefer Nola to Tanaka, but for cash, I think it's pretty obviously Scherzer, Tanaka. For GPP, higher end pitching, it would be DeGrom, Nola. And then lower end, I really don't mind Chassin. I prefer Chassin over Stroman for sure. And Milwaukee was just really hot to end the year. I wouldn't be surprised if they were a great team this year. And, not that Mikolas is a terrible pitcher because he's good. So that could be a low scoring game. But for 6,300, I wouldn't be shocked if Chassin can get a win out of that too. He could be around 20 points. And I think what do we look for in our pitchers again? What return on value? Like 3x or 2.5? No. What do we want?
Yeah, about 2.5. Like, yeah. I mean, you're sitting with about 11,100 with Scherzer. So
yeah,
2.5 puts you in that 25 to 30 point range.
Yeah, anything more than that is great. So I wouldn't be surprised if I can see Chassin. I think he has a ceiling of in the 30s. If all goes well.
Yeah. Okay.
He's done that before. He's that good. He's not the best pitcher in the world, but he's got a good upside, and he's the opening day starter for them for a reason. They're going to be a contender this year. So, I wouldn't touch Cashner. Couldn't pay me.
No.
Zimmerman was weirdly inconsistent last year. He's not as bad as we all thought he was at the beginning of the year last year. Like, he was a guy that we just stacked against every time he was on the mound. But I don't want to target him either. So, my player pool today for pitchers will be Scherzer and Tanaka and cash, Nola and DeGrom and GPP, and maybe like a tiny, and probably just Chassin and no one else, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, and for me on FanDuel, like I said, it's Scherzer and Tanaka. I'm not really interested, just being as it's a one-pitcher site, I'm not interested in going with the cheap pitchers. I mean, Chassin and Stroman both have low.
Yeah, with a one-pitcher site, I get it. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, swinging strike rates, like low K rates. I'm with you. I prefer Chassin over Stroman if you're looking for that cheap pitcher. So I'll definitely go that way, but a little bit different over there. So we've covered pitching. So we've got 5 games here. With those 5 games, in those lineups for cash, where you're going to go Scherzer and who else? And Tanaka there. Who are you interested in for targeting? So either maybe not a whole value stack, but like for cash games, if you're going like with 2-player stacks, that type of thing. Which teams are you looking at mostly on this early slate?
I like some of the cheaper Yankees. Like, for example, Brett Gardner is like one of the top plays on the slate. He's leading off for the Yankees. He's got a lefty-righty matchup. He's only 3,600 on DraftKings, so he's going to be one of the more popular plays, period, today. I think that is justified because he does have power and speed. And on DraftKings, or actually, I keep saying on DraftKings, but on both sites now, Stolen bases are really a premium as well. So Gardner, obviously Judge and Stanton, we all know that. We all know who they are. But, don't forget about Greg Bird. He's another lefty that's cheaper at the Yankees, hitting 7th, so he'll be lower owned. But I kind of like I would like a Yankee stack without Judge and Stanton so that you can afford something.
I like it.
But, something like Gardner, Voit, Andujar, maybe Gary if you want to pay up for catcher, or like Greg Bird and Torres. Like I happen to think that would be very low owned today because a lot of people just jam in Judge and Stanton, which automatically means you can't have those ace pitchers. So I think if you're creative with the Yankees today, they make for a very good stack. And I have a weird vibe about Milwaukee. They just really ended the year hot. Maybe not like a full-on Milwaukee stack, but I like the Milwaukee lefties as well. And then, that's – and I consider Julio Teheran pretty terrible. So I wouldn't be surprised if I like Segura, Harper, Hoskins. This Philly lineup's pretty loaded all of a sudden. So I like the Phillies as well. But again, like for those who don't know, like baseball is a stack sport. So we're not really – you're not going to get very far when you're just picking individual batters. Maybe if you're playing a lineup where you literally pick like the 2 worst pitchers on DraftKings – and you just want to pick like the best player at every position, you can get away with that every now and then if your pitchers do well. But, for most part, and especially for cash games, when Chris and I are going over this stuff, we're not going to say, hey, I like, I said Brett Gardner because he happens to be very cheap. I don't think DraftKings knew he was going to lead off. That's why he's 3,600. So we'll point specific guys out in that situation. But for the most part, we're picking offenses, not individual players. So
yeah, situations to target, pitchers that maybe struggle that we want to target against, and with that we can find value bats. Usually, if you get a terrible pitcher, you can find those one-off plays near the bottom of the lineup because they're going to be 1 very cheap, 2 and they're in a good matchup. So I really don't mind for cash sometimes getting 1, maybe 2 guys in that 5 to 8 spot, more of the 5 to 7, I guess. Just to get some value, and especially if they're in a good matchup, I don't mind going that way. And then, like you said, pointing out Gardner at he's only 2,700 on FanDuel, leading off for the Yankees against Andrew Cashner. I mean, like auto lock, he should be 70% in cash. I don't know if he will be, but he definitely should be. Yeah, so I 100% agree with you there. The other team I do like going with Toronto. There's not a whole lot I really like with the Toronto. I wrote up in my article going Justin Smoke as well as Morales, but of course Morales is gone now. So definitely looking at Smoke at first base. Zimmerman struggled last year. He was a little bit better. Like 2017, he was absolutely terrible. He posted, just looking at it here, a 6.08 ERA, 5.41 xFIP. Improved quite a bit last year, up to a 4.52 ERA. But the problem that I found with him digging a little bit deeper is that his hard contact went up that he's given up, the fly balls went up, and his home run to fly ball rate hit 15.7%, which is like 3% more than it had been any other time in his career when he played a full season. So definitely looking at some Blue Jays today. They're very, very cheap. Mostly, like I said, Justin Smoke I like at first base. Brandon Drury's like minimum price going to be leading off, it looks like, for the Jays. And then not as interested in Billy McKinney. You'd be familiar with him as a Yankee fan.
Prospect.
But again, the very, very cheap at the top of this Toronto order, and I really do like their matchup. And they're almost projected for almost 5 runs, so I definitely like it.
You got him for half, I believe.
Yeah. Cool. And then someone asking here, just looking at the chat, thoughts on the card stack, like Goldschmidt, Carpenter, DeJong. I mean,
I don't mind it, but as I mentioned earlier, like I like Chacin as a pitcher, so I think by default that would mean that I probably am not a fan of a St. Louis stack.
Yeah. And I'm more of a fan of the St. Louis stack. I guess
I think good players, obviously. Like Goldschmidt's one of the best players in baseball, so they're going to have a great season. I just don't think they're going to have a huge opening day.
And myself, that's where we're a little bit different. And I like that. I like that we're not just agreeing on everything. I like a game stack that's St. Louis, Milwaukee. I'm not really a fan of Mikolas or Chacin as pitchers. I like the St. Louis side more. I think the Milwaukee side is going to be a little bit lower owned. So if you do want to grab like a Yelich, Kane, I like Shaw. I'm not really a fan of Braun anymore. He's really gone down, but he's super cheap. I mean, if you want to fit, he's right in between those big hitters. So if you want to get Braun in there with your Milwaukee stack, I think it makes a lot of sense as well.
Yeah, I'm not a Braun guy, but you know, he's in there. He's hitting third or whatever for a reason, fourth, whatever.
Yeah. Are you doing any Philly stacks versus Tehran?
Yeah, I mean, I'm running, you know, in smaller DPPs where you're playing multiple lineups. I'll probably stack, you know, almost every offense, but I pretty much I'm only going to run the offenses that I just mentioned before.
Cool. Right on. Well, we got no more questions, so let's jump into the main slate here. And the main slate starts at 4 Eastern, and we've got, I think I said 9 games, and it starts with Houston, Tampa Bay at 4 Eastern, and then at 4:05 we've got Chicago, Texas. 4:07 we've got LA at Oakland, Pittsburgh at Cincinnati, Colorado at Miami, Cleveland at Minnesota, Arizona at the Dodgers, San Francisco at San Diego, and the White Sox at Kansas City. Now, I wouldn't have had to go through with that. I had a little trouble this morning. We got this new program with a whole bunch of cool stuff on the screen. So our videos in the future, everyone, for anyone that's watching right now.
An opening day scramble by, you know, it won't usually be like this, though.
Yeah, for sure. So definitely got some cool stuff coming down. So back to the pitching on this slate. We got Justin Verlander at the top. He's obviously the most expensive. 11,000 on DraftKings, and over on FanDuel, he is 11.4. So he's the most expensive option by quite a bit. He is definitely probably got the most upside here. I like him a little bit more in this matchup against Snell just because of the offenses. Obviously, Tampa Bay was very good last year. I think they maybe overperformed a little bit when it comes to their offense, but I definitely like Verlander here. My favorite's definitely going to be Kluber versus Minnesota. He's a very small favorite, so it kind of scares me a little bit there. I think it's minus 115 here, but he posted another 3 ERA right around there with his xFIP again last year. He doesn't walk anyone. He's second lowest walk rate in the whole entire slate today. The swinging strike rate isn't, it's 12%, so it's not like Scherzer at 16 or DeGrom at 15 or even Tanaka at 14, but there is some strikeout upside there against this Minnesota team. Minnesota was a little bit better against right-handers last year, but it wasn't really a big split at all. So I definitely like Kluber. And then my other guy I like saving is Kyle Freeland. He had a tremendous year, pitching half of his games in Colorado last year with what he did, posting at 2.85 ERA. There's probably some regression coming. He had a 4.22 xFIP, and a lot of that I think would have to do with playing half your games in Colorado. But he gets the best pitcher's park in Miami today. He's a minus 41 favorite in a game with a 7.5 total. I think he's got a good shot at the win, and at 5 to 6 strikeouts. And I think at that 9,000 on DraftKings, 9,200 on FanDuel, makes a lot of sense to go with Freeland. And then, especially for me on FanDuel, and then loading up on some bats because we do have some more games and a lot better spots, I think, for some bats here. There's a lot less elite pitching at the top like there is on the short slate. So, how are you looking at pitching on the main slate?
Again, like you said earlier, I'm glad we disagree here, but I happen to prefer Blake Snell over Verlander in this situation, especially on DraftKings, considering the price discount. You're saving like what, a G and a half almost.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's a huge difference on DraftKings between those two.
Yeah, and I think Snell is, I don't know why people don't know. I mean, again, I'm not suggesting you're saying he's not, amazing, but I think he's one of the best pitchers in baseball. Like, if especially considering his age, and he was an unbelievable prospect. He really panned out. And I never thought he'd be this dominant, but he's just nasty. He throws really hard. The ball like picks up speed as it gets closer to you. And his slider is devastating, and his control is wicked too. So I like Snell. I'm not scared of Houston. I think Houston is going to have a great season, and they are a great offense, but sometimes great offenses going up against stud pitchers just aren't going to do much. So I don't want to jinx him, but I think Snell could have the best pitching performance of the day out of everyone on every slate. So he's my favorite. I guess, he's a cash and GPP guy for me. I'm just going to play him across the board, but I probably lower ceiling lineup. I don't know. I guess Verlander for cash, if I'm in the straight double up game, I'm going to have both, but I'll have Verlander and maybe like Kyle Freeland in Miami is not a bad situation. But it's opening day. I know Miami's terrible, but I just don't, it's opening day. People are excited. People play, better than they're supposed to play. I'm kind of a fan of, I didn't realize how far down he is. I like Jameson Taillon.
Yeah.
Is he here? Yeah. Am I on the right slate? Yeah. Like was one of the best pitchers in baseball for like half the season last year, and just kind of hit a wall. But he's had a good K to walk ratio in spring training, so it looks like he's kind of returning to form, and he was a stud. So I like that price for him.
That's a crazy price for him.
Cincinnati's a little bit of a hitter's park, so I don't mind Luis Castillo too. I'm personally going to do a little bit more research before I make my call. And also, I don't know, there's a lot of good options, to be honest. I like Carlos Rodon. He's got a great K upside. So, even what's his name? Brad Keller. That's not someone I'm targeting or like throwing in cash, but he was really good for the second half of the season last year for them. He was one of those guys that started out as a reliever and just like kind of got the chance to see what what he was made of for the second half of the year. And those starts that were, 3 or 4 inning starts ended up becoming 5, 6 innings, 7 inning starts for him as the year went on. And, they found a starting pitcher. So Chicago struck out a lot last year. I think it's obviously a bit of a different lineup, but for 4,800, I see a lot of upside in Brad Keller.
Yeah, I agree with you. I like using him as a punt with like Verlander, Snell, or Kluber. I don't think he's going to give you a lot of upside just because he's only struck out like 6 per 9 with like a 9% swinging strike rate. But he is an elite ground ball guy, like 55%.
He's ground ball guy, yes.
And he doesn't give up fly balls. So I think you're safe. I think you could definitely be safe with him for like, if you could get 5 to 6 innings out of Keller at 4,800 and he only gets you 4 strikeouts, I think he only gives up 1 to 2 runs. I think that's easily crushing value, especially on
win. If he gets you 4 or 5, 5 innings, 1 or 2 runs, or even no runs, 3 or 4 Ks, maybe even 1 or 2 Ks, and then gets the win too, like that's smashing value.
Yeah, I agree.
So I like him for GPP for sure. But again, cash is probably more along the lines of I would say Kluber Snell would probably be my cash lineup. Maybe potentially Berrios. I would want to do a little bit more research, but Snell's my guy today.
Yeah, I'm for cash. I'm not. I like Berrios for GPP.
Verlander's so good, but
But Berrios definitely, I don't like targeting against those, your top tier offenses in cash. So I'll definitely be avoiding Berrios myself, unless it's GPP. Like GPP for sure, I'm okay with it. So, do you have any thoughts on Bumgarner on his first start against San Diego?
I'm not. San Diego's a good pitcher. That's a good call. I'm glad you asked that. Actually, San Diego's a good pitcher's park, so he's definitely got a bump there. We're used to seeing him above 10K when he's healthy, so. It'll be interesting. I think Bumgarner has a lot of upside, but it's definitely a GPP play. I want to see what he's going to do in his first start, at least maybe his first couple starts before I
jump on board,
start playing him personally. But I will be watching very closely tonight because that's a good matchup. San Diego's an exciting young team, so it's not the pushover team that it used to be. But if Bumgarner, he's healthy, he used to be elite, and the only thing standing in the way of his eliteness was his injuries. So, we should assume that he's probably, at least $500, $600, $700 underpriced on DraftKings, assuming he's the Bumgarner of old, maybe even more.
Yeah, and I like it for GPP. Definitely not going there in cash, but for GPP, I think just with all the options that we have, he's going to be overlooked, and especially with Manny Machado going to San Diego and in that lineup now, I think that Bumgarner is going to be overlooked.
They're going to be excited, and they're all going to want to stack San Diego too.
Yep. So I like going against that. That's one of my GPP strategies. I mean, that's super contrarian, is kind of picking out those chalk stacks on a given night and then going with the pitcher on the other side, because you're going to get them at like 1, 2, 3% owned because everyone's on the offenses. And when the offense fails and the pitcher does good, you're already ahead of like 50-60% of the entire field. So if your hitters don't even need to max out for you to win in those situations, it's not always going to work. It's probably a negative EV way to go about it, but when it does hit, it hits big and definitely pays off. So
I'll give you another example: going Robin Lopez over Enes Kanter last night on DraftKings.
Yeah, exactly.
Robin Lopez was $100 cheaper. Kanter was 1,000,000% owned, and Rolo ended up making more sense and having a much better game.
Yep, and that's how you win GPPs.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we went through pitchers, kind of our favorites here. Let's jump into some stacks. I'll start out with a couple of my the teams that I'm really targeting here tonight. Just kind of look at my cheat sheet. And if you haven't yet, I do a MLB cheat sheet for RotoPros. It comes out every day. If you want to know how to use it, because there is a ton of advanced stats, a lot of it, almost I'd say 90% of it comes from Fangraphs. Go to our YouTube channel, same one that you're watching this on. Check out the video where I go through my MLB cheat sheet and kind of explain how to use it, what stats I look at, and the different ways that you can use it, because there are multiple ways. I like using the team stacking feature, kind of lists every team, their implied runs and stuff like that. Number one for me, right at the top of this slate, is going to be the Chicago Cubs. They get a great park in Texas. Number two, when I look at park factor on my sheet, or whenever I mention park factor, it's an average of the last 3 years. I like to get a little bit bigger of a sample size.
Park factor is a great thing to reference.
So Texas over the last 3 years has been number 2 in runs generated and number 6 in home runs. So definitely looking at that. And they're going up against Mike Minor. They've crushed left-handed pitching last year. Actually, the Cubs were actually pretty even when it came to righty-lefty splits, but they were really good overall. Mike Minor was not good overall. He gave up over 45% fly balls. Only 12% of those turned into home runs, but he's given up close to 40% hard contact. He had an ERA over 4. He had an xFIP over 4.5. So that's definitely my number one spot to target. How about yourself?
I was gonna say kind of the other side of that game. I agree completely on Texas being the park and the game the target. We'll kind of see what the Cubs lineup looks like. Not gonna be too many surprises, but if anything, I like a game stack of this who's probably gonna be Lester, right, on the mound for the Cubs.
Yes.
So if it's Lester, I like people like Delino DeShields, Elvis Andrus, and then Hunter Pence down at 2,800 hitting 5th. Those are 3 really cheap righties in a great ballpark. And then I would personally run it back with someone like Javi Baez on the other side, at least, and maybe even Chris Bryant too. And you're looking at a really powerful stack in probably, 2 of the crappier pitchers of the day in one of the best ballparks of the day. So, between that and maybe Cincinnati's a similar situation, but with better pitchers going on the mound. And then that's pretty much that's it. I would say that this is 100% the best game to focus on, in my opinion, offensively.
I like it. And then, for a little bit of value, I'm looking at the Pirates versus Luis Castillo. People are still waiting for Castillo to break out.
He's so inconsistent.
Terrible. Yeah,
sometimes he's unhittable. Sometimes he just gets shelled.
And the biggest thing about him that I found were his splits. He was absolutely terrible against left-handed pitching last year. The WOBA split was crazy. He gave up a 373 WOBA to lefties, only a 256 to righties. So there was that. And then the hard contact, 34% to righties and a whopping 43% to lefties. So I'm definitely targeting the lefties in that lineup. And I think Pittsburgh, just kind of looking at the projected lineup, is probably going to throw, it looks like, 3 lefties in the top 4 with Frazier, Dickerson, and then switch hitting Josh Bell. And then you got Starling Marte in there as well. I love that top 4 for a stack tonight. Definitely going to be on that. And then one other one that I'm looking at a little bit is Oakland versus Trevor Cahill. Maybe a little bit overlooked, not real sure. Oakland is going to be without Matt Olson, I believe, for a couple weeks. So definitely, I think Chad Pinder is going to make some sense. He's going to be starting in center field, I believe. He's really cheap. He's going to be hitting down the order, but top of the order, I definitely love Matt Chapman. He's got elite defense, but I think his bat's got even more room to grow after last year. I think he's going to be, that 25 to 30 home run, 100 RBI guy. He had 100 runs last year, but only 65 RBIs. I think you're going to see a boost in those power numbers this year. And then you got Steven Piscotty. Not too excited about him, but he's nice and cheap in the middle there. And then you got the crusher, Chris Davis, in the 4 spot. So Oakland's definitely a team on my radar tonight as well.
Cool. Yeah, I in terms of, I guess, a little bit under the radar, I would probably say I think your GPP winning stack of the day, and this happened a bunch of times last season, and it was just on days where no one expected it, and they usually, I don't think many people benefited from it or played them in GPP, but the Tampa Bay offense today, I think if you stack their lefties against Verlander, I feel it in my bones. I think that's an awesome GPP strategy. I would not do it in cash, and I would not do it with the bulk of your bankroll. But if you have a little extra cash to throw it in a GPP, a Tampa Bay stack, particularly with the lefties, I love Meadows I think he came from the Pirates. He's a really good prospect. Yeah. Ji-Man Choi found a great home with them down the road. He's 2,900. It's a joke. he was hitting bombs last season in the second half for them. And they're just like a fun team. You can tell they get along with each other. There's a lot of chemistry. Brett Lowe, I think his name is, the guy hitting 4th. So I like their 1, 3, 4, and Joey Wendell's a great prospect too, hitting 6. So I like their lefties today. I think it's an awesome GPP value contrarian move. It'll be extremely low owned. I'm going to check in with the Oakland offense later as well. When that lineup's posted, I agree with you. They were hitting a ton of home runs to end the year last year, and that's a lot of the same guys. And that's also, I believe, a hitter's park, Oakland.
Just let me check that out on my park factor here.
I remember I used to think it was a pitcher's park, but I think it was now a hitter's park, but whatever.
Actually, no, it's definitely on the pitcher side. It's ranked 23rd in over the last year.
Use that, but anyway, and the Dodgers I'll keep an eye on too, but it's most likely going to be Robbie Ray on the mound, right?
Yeah. The reason you were thinking Oakland there is a hitter's park, 27, not last year. Last year it was major. It was way shifted towards the pitcher side. The year before it was 6th in runs created and 11th in home runs. So 2017, it was kind of an outlier year in Oakland. Not really sure. Maybe it was the wind blowing out at center. Yeah. That happens a lot there. Not really sure there, but it was a bit of an outlier year. But I mean, there's definitely opportunity. But the other 2 years they were outside top 25 in hitters. So
makes sense.
Yep.
All right, cool. That does it for me.
I got a couple of questions here. One question: is there any one-off Giants that you like against Eric Lohr? I don't know, a whole bunch about Eric Lohr.
Yeah, but I mean, Buster Posey, a righty, Posey crushes lefties, so I would imagine Posey's definitely in play. And catching bombs are, of a premium.
I mean, Lohr, I haven't seen him pitch, but I'm just kind of going off his numbers. He had a 4.34 ERA, 4.51 xFIP last year, and the hard contact was crazy. It was 40%.
He got smashed around, but then he also had these random outings where, like, he would go like 8 innings. It was crazy. But I have the San Francisco righties for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And then for me, for San Francisco, definitely the Rays. The problem with them right now is that their projected lineup, I don't think I'll be stacking them just because their projected lineup is showing 3 lefties in the top 4. So, and then 2 more at the bottom of the lineup with Parra and Crawford. So if they're going to be running 5 lefties, it's not a team I want to stack. But like you said, one-off, Buster Posey.
Still there?
What's that?
Longoria still there?
Yeah, he's going to be back.
Longoria and Posey, honestly.
Yeah, and then I actually don't mind it's not a full stack. But if you're going Longoria and Posey in the 3 and 5 spot, if you fit Brandon Belt in there, he actually hit lefties pretty well, and he's going to be 2% owned.
Very good point. So yeah, good question. San Francisco, if you do it the right way, could be a very interesting GPP attack.
Yep. Right on. Well, we covered pitchers. We covered stacks on both slates. We hammered it out. If you guys got any questions, make sure to get over to the RotoPros community chat. If you're not a member yet, make sure to get over to rotopros.com. Click that top right-hand corner yellow sign-up button. Really easy to see. Get in there. You're going to get a free trial to come in and check out what we have. We have weekly memberships. We have monthly memberships. We've got contests going on. We've got premium articles coming out. We've got player pools. One-on-one coaching. There's a ton that we offer in our community chat for our members. So get over there, check that out. And with that, thanks for watching. Thanks for joining me today, Josh. Let's go make some lineups and let's crush this opening day.
Good job, Chris. Thank you, everybody, and let's make some money.
Cheers.